Welcome to Construction Genius. This is Eric Anderton, and my guest today is Stephen King. Not the writer, but the president and CEO of GrowthForce, one of the nation's largest providers of outsourced bookkeeping and controller services. And we're going to be talking today about managing cash flow through times of crisis. How can you thrive in the midst of a recession? How can you manage your cash so that you strengthen your business during the recession and come out of it being able to take advantage of the new opportunities that are presented to you? That's what this conversation is about. We go for about an hour today, and it's going to be well worth your time to listen to every minute of the interview because there's so much rich insight into what you can do to really understand the numbers in your business that drive your success and then make decisions that are data-driven and not gut-driven. And that's one of the keys to being successful in times of crisis when perhaps you might be emotional, is to allow the data to drive your decisions. You're going to need some self-discipline and some accountability within your organization and tools in order to get that data. But once you have it, then you can make good decisions. That's what this interview is all about. I know you're going to enjoy it. Thank you for listening to Construction Genius today. And please, if you think we've earned it, give us a 5-star rating or review wherever you get your podcasts, particularly on Apple Podcasts, because that helps to get Construction Genius out into the interwebs and gets us seen all over the place. So again, thanks for listening to Construction Genius. This is Eric Anderton, and you're listening to Construction Genius, a leadership masterclass. Thomas Edison said that genius is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. If you're a construction leader, you know all about the perspiration, and this show is all about the 1% inspiration that you can add to your hard work to help you to improve your leadership. Okay, Stephen, welcome to Construction Genius. Thank you for joining us here today.
Thanks for having me, Eric.
Stephen, this is your 6th recession.
Yeah.
How are you feeling at the moment?
You know, I feel pretty cautiously optimistic because there's 14% of the economy that's tanked.
Right.
Retail, entertainment, transportation, and energy. But the rest of the U.S. economy, what we're seeing is people have figured out how to make that pivot.
Right.
I was talked to a doctor yesterday who said, I'm busier than I've ever been. I didn't, a colonoscopy doctor. So that's elective stuff. Car business had the best quarter ever.
Yep.
Everything's on Zoom. And we're seeing marketing agencies that they can't keep up with the demand. So there's pockets out there where it's really not the same, but the sky is not falling.
Excellent. So that word pivot is absolutely essential. And the way I'd like to frame our conversation here today is this idea of, in this time of recession, it's very easy for people to be emotional, to get gut-driven. Your conviction is that now is the time to avoid intuitive decisions and really allow yourself to be driven by the data.
Yeah, you have to. You have to, because it's too dangerous.
Tell me then, in your experience going through a number of recessions over the years that you've gone through, what is the difference between the companies that thrive and the companies that fail in the midst of recessions?
What's interesting is it's the same in the midst of a recession or outside of a recession. It's companies that make data-driven decisions and not decisions based on gut thrive. And what they do is they get the data into the hands of the people who are making the decisions. Their accounting function is not a historical record keeper. It's companies that understand. And the studies are staggering. The companies understand that if you put actionable financial intelligence into the hands of the people when they're making decisions, you'll be the market leader. You'll have 15 to 20% EBITDA as opposed to 3 to 5%.
So tell me then, what is the difference between a good accounting department and a bad accounting department?
Well, a bad accounting department doesn't get you information that you can trust and use because you don't believe it's right. Those numbers aren't on time, and it's not meaningful. I'm a CPA. I've been a CPA for 35 years, but we do management accounting, right? What GrowthForce does, outsource bookkeeping, management accounting, and controller services for companies that use QuickBooks, NetSuite, and Xero. That I've learned over decades is, why do you do accounting? You do accounting most people do it to stay out of trouble.
Right.
Make sure that the bank has what it needs to give me that line of credit. The IRS is not going to come knocking at your door.
Yep.
And the well-run companies use accounting to make more money. full stop. It's not just, looking backwards. It's about helping you look forward and, understanding the decisions you have to make. What are the drivers of those decisions? And then what data do I need?
Okay. So let's talk about that then. Let's talk about the relationship between the data you need and the drivers of your decisions. How would you sit down and articulate that with someone if you were going to help them to get some health in their accounting and in their business?
Right now, right, in a recession, the first thing is you got to, it's a mindset is the very beginning, right? You have to have the right mindset. If you as the leader, lead from a position of hope and not fear, the organization will have hope and not fear. The second part of the mindset is this will pass, right? There has not yet been a recession that did not end.
Right.
And your mindset should be, how do we come out of this stronger, more profitable? Because the companies that have a stated goal to do that, that's what they do.
Okay.
To my mind, this is a different recession. This is not a normal recession because it's a pandemic. And you have to communicate to everyone, your health is your wealth. Let's put that first. If you're not strapped to a ventilator, then you're blessed. And
right.
So when you come into this recession from a feeling of abundance, and you put that energy out there, that's what will happen.
Okay.
But now that's all mindset, right? The second part of the mindset is the data. You have to have a mindset of what data do I need to make this decision? The first decision
Let me just take you back though, just real quick, before we leave mindset, because, you're a CPA, so someone might be saying, what does Steven know about mindset? He's one of those numbers guys, right? So just in your personal experience, what have you done through the ups and the downs? What do you do to maintain that mindset of not just positivity, but optimism and proactivity?
That's a great question, Eric. We just did it yesterday. We've been having company meetings by Zoom, right? We've got 65 people,
right?
50 something of us are all here in Kingwood, Texas, in a big 18,000 square foot service center, bookkeepers, accountants, controllers. Now, we're scattered. And, my last company was called Virtual Growth. We built the first cloud-based accounting system in 1995.
Wow.
43 million in venture capital funding. That's a whole nother story.
Back in the day.
So yeah, Netscape 1.0, I had this idea.
Beautiful.
So we brought everybody together and we asked 65 people to take 1 minute to say, what's the one unexpected benefit that's come out of this whole mess?
There you go.
Oh my God, it brings me to tears now thinking about it. People were like my son's first step. I would have been in a conference room if I wasn't able to be here. My wife's water broke and I was supposed to be speaking in another town. My mom passed, but I was there for the 3 weeks, with her.
Right.
Just the appreciation that, GrowthForce is still profitable, still going, keeping jobs, and then calling our clients and asking them, how can we help you? And hearing them say, take care of your staff because I depend on your people to help me run this company. And if you screw this up, we're in trouble. So, it's asking the people that are around you for that affirmation of what they feel has made them blessed.
See, that's very interesting because it's not all on your shoulders as the leader. You have to be able to provide that example of optimism and that example of proactivity, but you also have to get it out of your people, give them an opportunity to demonstrate their resilience and express their gratitude for the circumstances and situations that are occurring to them.
Yeah, and then they own it, right? And they have that, my wife is right? She says, say the words that you want to have happen as if they already happened and put it out there. And your brain doesn't know the difference between reality and the reality that you paint for it. And words have power. Instead of complaining about what's not happening, say what you want to have happen. And that mantra teaches your brain as if it already happened, that it did happen. And so if you say, okay, I really want to, get fit. I enjoy working out and I feel good afterwards. Your brain starts to say, okay, we got to go to the gym so we can feel good.
It's interesting. So let's say I really want to get my accounting fit and I want to be in really good shape for this recession so I can get through it and actually grow my business through it. First thing is the mindset. What do we need to do after that?
What's the data? Big message here, if your listeners take one thing away, is today in this difficult time, your emotions can run wild. And now more than ever, if first is, what's your scenario? That's the first data point. Are you in survival mode? Mm-hmm. Which means we may not make it. I got to make some very difficult decisions. I've got to make some cuts or I have to pivot the business model.
Right? Just so we get that, if you are in survival mode right now, you either got to cut or pivot.
Right.
Okay?
You focus on cash flow. How long will my cash last?
Right?
That's the number one. And then two, what cuts can I make
Yep.
in order to make that cash last longer?
Okay.
And then what other sources of cash? Survival is all only cash. That nothing else matters.
Okay. So in terms of the cash flow, how long is it going to last? Where are some additional sources? What do I need to cut in order to be able to retain more of my cash?
Exactly. And having that data, having that in a 13-week cash flow forecast.
Okay.
So at your fingertips. And when this first hit, we were working with clients on a daily basis. Okay, what money came in last night? Did the money that we expected to come in, did it arrive?
Yep.
Or are we waiting for that payment and now we've got some risk because it didn't hit the bank?
So forgive my simplistic question here, but why a 13-week cash flow statement?
That's a good question, actually, because it takes that long to really be able to see problems that are before they happen and have enough time to be able to react to it.
Okay.
You want to be looking at a quarter ahead.
Yep.
And it's basically 13 weeks in a quarter.
Yep.
And that what allows you to do is you look at, how many payrolls have you got to make?
Yes.
If you got a biweekly payroll, it's 6 payrolls. If it's a semi-monthly payroll, it's 6 payrolls. That's how long, because once you can't make payroll, then you're not survival. You're not surviving.
Yep. Okay. So let's say you're not in survival mode. Let's say you were smart during the boom and you stuff some cash away and you're kind of on your toes a little bit. You're looking around, you got your head up for opportunities. What advice do you have there?
Well, then you're either in restructure mode or strengthen mode. Right? Restructure is where we're seeing most businesses right now. We're going to make it, but it's a different world. We're going to have to make some hard decisions.
Okay.
And that's, where the smart ones come out of it stronger, because especially, we'll talk a little bit later, I hope, about pricing.
Yep.
Now is the time to be studying the data to make sure that you understand where do you generate the most profits and who's the drain on profits, and where do you invest your limited resources to get new clients.
Okay, so let's talk about that a little bit. In your experience as a CPA, in the way that you work with your clients, what are the decisions that the CEOs struggle with the most?
There's 4 of them. I do a webinar on how to make data-driven decisions. I'm a data junkie. So, I've literally been doing this since 1995. And when we bring on a new client, the first thing we ask them is, what decisions are you trying to make right now to increase profits? And as I do my speaking across the country, I used to ask business owners, what decisions are you trying to make? And then my presentation would work backwards from there.
Hold on. Let me just bring you back here.
Yeah.
Because it's important. I just want to stop there. What decisions are you making? The first question is, what decisions are you making to increase profit?
Yes.
Why that question first?
Because it's not about what you make. It's about how much you keep.
Yep.
It's really important. Go back and say, okay, so why do I have this company? You may have started it because you lost your job and you said, okay, that's never going to happen to me again.
Right.
But most people go in there and say, I want to create some economic wealth for my family, some stability. I want to live that American dream.
Sure.
And your employees are looking for you to create economic wealth for them. And your community is looking for you to contribute. So the reason why we're in business is to make a profit.
Right.
And too many businesses, they think they can sell their way to profits.
Okay.
Growing the top line will mean I'll have more cash to cover the overhead, and that'll increase the bottom line. And that's causes you the cash flow problems that you're dealing with now.
Yeah, that's particularly true in construction. I repeat this until I'm blue in the face. Most companies in construction go out of business because of too much work and the wrong type of work, not too little work.
Yes. Oh, that's religion for me. Yes. We're talking to a company right now, $43 million company that has like 2.5% profits.
Mm-hmm.
That's $1.2 million. Okay. It's not horrible, right? The business owner is like, okay, you know what? There's enough here for us to really help make a difference.
Yep.
But the best run companies are going 12 to 15% margin, right?
Yep.
Net profit we're talking about.
Right.
Well, let's say you're on the low end of that, 10%. If I said, I'd rather you be a $30 million business making 10% net income than a $43 million business making 3% net income.
Yep.
That's double or triple the amount of money that you end at the end of the year.
Yep.
And you do it by by being surgical about your decision making all the way through it.
That's kind of a struggle, right? Because let's say you've started a business, and one of the things that you do when you're starting a business is you say yes, right?
Yeah, right.
You say yes until you've said yes too many times, and now you got to learn to say no. What do people need to focus on in order to be able to balance that yes and that no and to grow in a healthy way?
So you have to have the data. So let's talk about what is that data that we keep talking about. Right?
Yep.
So the single most important decision you're going to make is pricing a job. Okay. Everything else pales in comparison, because a small change in your top line of a project has an outsized, profound impact on the bottom line.
Okay.
Most of the construction companies, we work with, you got around a 30% gross profit margin, right?
Right. Yep.
So if you have a 30% margin and you are working from a position of fear and saying, okay, I need to keep my people busy. I got to make sure that I close that next job so I get the deposit check so I can make the payment to the bank.
Right.
That starts you thinking, I need to, and your sales reps start thinking, we're in a competitive situation here. If I can just get a 10% discount on this deal, I'm going to close this.
Yep.
And I'll make it up in work orders. I'll make it up in follow-up, jobs, but let's just close the deal, get the deposit check, and keep our people busy.
Yes.
Right? Happens all the time.
Yep.
Single biggest mistake you'll make, because a 10% discount with a 30% margin means you have to sell 25% more business to make the same profit, to make the same cash.
Right.
Why? Because you got $1 million of business, you give a 10% discount, that's $100,000. That all comes out of the bank account. Your materials costs don't change, your labor costs don't change, your rent doesn't change. That's what the difference between having a 5% in your bottom line to a 12% of your bottom line.
So let me ask you this then, because I can just hear contractors really pushing back and say, yeah, I do need to keep my guys busy, because if I don't keep my guys busy, they go work for the competition, and then I won't be able to have any labor on hand when the economy picks back up again. And I've got all this competition coming in from different segments that are cutting prices, and I'm losing jobs all over the place. Yep. So what are you going to say back to that? How are you going to help someone get through that conflict and that challenge, which is real? It's not a fake.
Real. Oh, no. This is not theory. We're dealing with this every single day.
Yep.
So the first thing is, I'm not telling you that you should never give a discount. I'm saying that you need to make a data-driven decision about, if I make this discount, what's this going to do to my bottom line? We're discounting to our clients right now.
Yep.
We do nonprofits. I got 30% of our clients are nonprofits because I was the CFO of Amnesty International. And we just voluntarily went and says, look, it's tough. We have a client for life strategy. So we're going to proactively come to you and say, look, here's what we can do to lower your price. And you should spend as little money on trying to negotiate with your landlord and the banks and like walking through the P&L and saying, here's what we got to do to slash everything. I'm not saying don't ever give a discount. I'm saying you have to understand the profound impact that this has. And if you are not happy with your profits, this is why. So what I suggest you do is you got to understand your above the line costs. So what's the difference between above the line costs and below the line? Above the line, gross profit is the line. Gross profit percentage is the most important number on any financial statement.
Okay.
Why? It's why the Shark Tanks always ask, how much do you sell it for and how much does it cost you fully landed? They're doing that math. I can make a 40% margin. You have to generate enough profit margin to cover your overhead.
Yep.
And then generate profit to go in the bank.
Yep.
And so if you're trying to increase your profits, the first place to do that is to understand, what are those above the line costs? And there's only two types. They're both the direct cost that the customer has directly paid for, right? In your cost of goods sold, you have direct labor, which is the labor that the customer paid for, the stuff that the people on the job, they're putting on the hard hats and climbing into the bucket, right? That's direct labor. You need to know the fully loaded labor costs on each job. And then the direct materials, the fully loaded materials costs. Yep. And we look at machine costs as well.
Yes, your equipment.
So you got to take that equipment and allocate it by the number of hours that machine is going to run.
Yep.
And then you put a cost per hour of machine along with the labor costs. If you got $45 in labor costs and you got another $65 in machine costs, okay, that's, $110. Well, if you're trying to make a 30% margin, you got to make sure that you got the fully loaded machine cost, the health insurance, not just the salary and the taxes. And once you know that, then you can start to see what's the value that I'm giving to my client. We just did this. We had a construction company in Ohio, Dirt Works Chicken Coop. Give a shout out to Ross. And he's got, a bunch of yellow metal. And they do all the work for a couple of big housing, national home builders. They clear the land and they dig the trenches and they have above ground work and below ground work. Well, he couldn't understand why he constantly had cash flow. He's growing his top line, opening up with new builders, getting more crews, but cash flow and profits, he couldn't sell his way to a bigger bottom line. By showing him, what we did was we used a time tracking system called T-Sheets, owned by Intuit. It's all integrated into QuickBooks as well as to Xero and NetSuite, any accounting system. Track the time on your phone with a geofence so that when somebody shows up on site, they automatically, it pops up and says, hey, I see you're on site. Do you want to start your clock now? Start your clock. What piece of equipment are you working? Is it a backhoe? Is it a bulldozer? Is it a picker? And then, is this a work order or a regular job? Because the single biggest opportunity to help you get that extra 10% is time leakage. What's the out of scope work you're giving away? What he found was he had work that he was paying for, but he wasn't getting paid for it. The guys would show up on site and they'd say, the foreman would say, you know what? We had a big storm last night. All that dirt, we had 2 pounds of clean fill up there. It got washed down. You got to push that back up the hill before we can clear the roads. That's out of scope. But the manager, the project manager there was like, well, yeah, sure. I guess we got to push the dirt back up the hill in order to do the work we got paid for. And they gave it away. By capturing that, that's the easiest way to be able to explain the value to your client. Ross went to the home builder and says, I got a bunch of bills here because this is the stuff that we're not getting paid for. And the guy said, you're the first subcontractor that's ever been able to show me exactly what I'm paying for.
What comes to mind there is this idea, and I think I come back to this again and again when it comes to the money side of the business. There has to be a tremendous amount of discipline in place, and then also a commitment to using technology and systems in such a way that you make that discipline as easy as possible. So I had a question about this idea of discounting. How do you work with your clients to help them to understand which clients they give discounts to and which they don't?
Which should they give discounts to?
Who should they give a discount to in order to maintain that relationship? Or even with that mindset of keeping my guys busy, who should get a discount so I can win a job? And which job should I not be discounting regardless of what the situation is?
So first thing I would suggest is you got to understand the economics of each client. You got to understand the profitability, the gross profit on the work that you do. And then what you need is and this is the same thing, the way I look at it is this is the same way you make decisions around sales and marketing. Right? When you're giving a discount, you can look at that as a selling cost, right? I needed that to close the sale. And so you have to be able to understand two things. You need to understand the lifetime value of a customer. And the cost to acquire that customer.
There you go.
And you measure them against each other. But starts with, again, unit economics. I didn't really talk about what does that mean? The profitability on the work that you do, that gross profit per customer, per job. It starts there. Once you know that unit economic, then you can start to slice and dice your customers and your jobs based on the decisions you have to make. So if you're trying to make a decision about discounting, whether or not this is a client that's worth investing in, you've got to be able to look at your total sales and marketing expense for that customer, including the discount. The total amount for the whole company divided by the number of new clients you get, that shows you the cost to acquire one customer. If this customer is a good customer, we're getting a lot of repeat business. I didn't have to spend a bunch of marketing dollars to bring them in. I don't have to pay a commission on the second year of sales. I've got some room to pay back to the customer and keep my net profit.
So there's key right there. I love that. The lifetime value of a customer versus the cost of acquiring a customer. So if I'm going to have I want to play long-term games with long-term people. And
Yes.
if that's the case, I'm going to work with you through the recession because I know you're the type of person I want to build for. You're the type of project that I want to build, and I want to maintain that. And plus, that cost of acquiring a customer, particularly in a recession, is tremendous, particularly if I have to be discounting my pricing in order to get a new customer.
That's right. That's right. So this tells you you kind of break even on those costs, right? How much does it cost to acquire a customer divided by the profit margin that you make on that customer?
Yes.
Now it tells you your break even point. There's another key thing here is that I like to look at unit economics, right? Is all about understanding the profit of that one customer. You also need to look at how much overhead have you got per unit.
Yes.
Okay, so the way to get to pricing and to profits, it's just math.
Right.
If you want to make a 10% net income or EBITDA,
Yep.
you've got to have enough gross profit dollars to cover your overhead and then another 10%. So how do you do that? On each job, calculate the overhead, the rent, the accountant, the IT per job.
Yep.
Per hour of machine time, per number of billable hours that you've got of people working, whatever your unit is.
Yep.
So that when you're saying on this job, okay, this is a $100,000 job, I want to make a $30,000 margin, $300,000. It's going to take 1,000 hours, and I have $15 of overhead per hour that I got to cover. And if I want to make a 10% profit, I need $10 of profit per hour, per machine hour. Now I got $25. I know the cost. I have the data. If I'm going to give you a decision, I might say, okay, I'm going to give you a discount, but I'm not going to give you a whole 10% because I have to at least cover my overhead on this job. I can't not cover the overhead per hour, per job, per unit. When you make that decision, you're making a data-driven decision.
Excellent. So that's the key here. It's not just, throwing a number out there because, the guy called you and said, hey, can you lower it another, if you just lower another 50 grand, maybe you'll get this deal. So it's not that. It's being much more methodical and much more data driven.
And then who are the right customers?
Yep.
$43 million company is at 3% profits. They're better off as a $30 million company with 5% profits. So how do you do that? So what you do is you go to your lowest profit margin clients, right? The worst clients that you've got, the ones that are not covering their overhead, and you build a case. Here are the costs that it takes me to serve you. How I priced it. If you blew the pricing, then you've got to own it. It's like, I blew the pricing. We need to do one of three things. And this is the conversation. And if you realize, especially now, that addition through subtraction is how you come out of this stronger, right? If your margins have eroded and you're having to discount, well, then you better discount on the companies that are going to have the best lifetime value.
Right.
You do a profitability by customer and by job report. And this is really easy in QuickBooks. Intuit Payroll and Insperity have automated the allocation of the labor cost. Once you've got the timesheets in QuickBooks, you can just automatically allocate labor above and below the line.
Mm-hmm.
By looking at the profitability of the bottom 10% of your clients every single month, what we suggest is you go in and say, here to those clients, here are the costs that I'm incurring. So if you want to stay at this scope of work, I need to increase our fees this much in order for us to continue to do business. Or if you want me to stay in your budget, I'm happy to do that. Here's what I'm going to take out of scope. Most people, they miss project management time.
Right.
There's client interaction and quality control time.
Right.
There's these hidden costs on every job that once you start tracking the time and people say, I spent 2 hours on the phone with the guy, then this is a PITA, right? This is a pain in the ass client. He's dragging down my overhead. He's not covering I'm not going to make my number if I keep serving these hard ones. Addition through subtraction is either I lower the scope, increase the fees, or I need to transition you to another service provider.
That's the key, though. It's what's interesting, though, is in construction particularly, is that once I've signed that contract and my house is on the line, those conversations get very difficult. But if you're going to survive, you can't be repeating those same mistakes where you're engaging with unprofitable clients just because you feel desperate.
Right. And the data tells you where you're making mistakes in your pricing model.
Okay.
I missed the travel time. I didn't realize that I had to get, I got to get a project manager and then I got to have somebody doing purchasing or whatever it is.
Yep.
when you start tracking the time and you allocate the labor to the customer, to the job, to the product or service they're working on, to the machine they're working on, to the whatever it is, based on the date, on the decisions you're trying to make, you work backwards from the decisions to figure out what are the drivers of those decisions, and then I can capture that data.
Okay. Now, do you say backwards from the decisions or backwards from the data?
No, start with the decision you're trying to make.
Right, there you go.
Pricing. Number one decision is pricing. Okay, what are the drivers of pricing?
Okay.
Number of hours, labor cost per hour, materials costs.
There you go.
Okay, now what data do I need? I need to track number of hours, labor costs for hours, and materials costs.
Yep.
Now I've got profit. Now gross profit. Now I can do pricing.
Let's say you're an entrepreneur, you've got a business, you've grown it over the years, and you're talking about here is not really your gig. It's not, you don't have a passion for the numbers.
Right.
Even though you know it's important, you just kind of maybe want to get out there and sell, or you want to plan, or you want to build, you're an engineer. How can you help someone like that?
Michael Gerber wrote a book, The E-Myth.
Right. It's a classic.
Best business book I ever wrote, right? What does he say? It is a myth that I ever read. I'm Stephen King, but I'm not a writer.
Yeah, right.
It's the best book I ever read, business book. And what he says is, it's a myth if you become an entrepreneur in America that you're going to get rich.
Yep.
So why is that? Because most business owners aren't good at all four of the steps of a stool. They are engineers. They're great at vision for the product and delivering on it. They know how to sell it. They know how to serve the client. But they're usually weak at the fourth leg of the stool, which is the back office.
Yep.
And what he says is the best thing to do is outsource anything that's not a core competency.
And the way to outsource is either to outsource it to another organization or bring in an expert who is your employee. Is that what you're thinking there?
Depends. If you want to make this a core competency of the business, of the management team,
okay,
then yes, invest in the human capital. It's not our culture. It's not who we are. I'm never going to give it what it needs in order for it to be. I'm not going to hire a 6-figure CFO and a controller and an accounting manager. If you say this is a priority and I want to invest that, I see that as a long-term investment, then you do it yourself. That's the beautiful part about the outsourcing world right now, is because you can save 30, 40% and change a fixed cost, headcount, into a variable cost. Yep. Because right now, everything you want to change to a variable cost as much as possible, because the unknown so much is unknown.
What's interesting to me as we're going through this, Stephen, is that, we're talking about data, but it's interesting how many leadership concepts are coming up here. So one thing I'm hearing a lot of is this idea of humility, of understanding knowing what you don't know, understanding what you don't know, also understanding where the business is struggling and being willing to admit that. Then there's this idea of self-awareness. If it's not your core competency, making sure that you're finding people who do have those core competencies around the data. I keep always coming back in these conversations, particularly around data, to this self-discipline, the need for discipline. And then the final one that I've been hearing a lot of really is this idea of courage. You've got to have the courage to tell yourself the truth about your business, your people the truth about your business, and then your clients the truth about your business. And in order to find the truth about your business, you need that data.
100%. Starts there. It's all about the numbers. I'm a Vistage member.
Yeah, go ahead.
15 years. That's where I learned most of this stuff from other peers.
Yep.
And, we just all have the same issues. So I love a Vistage to help you with that leadership stuff.
That's awesome. So we were talking about this, the cuts, the above the line, the below the line cuts. Let's just spend a little bit of time. How do you help your clients address some of the toughest cuts, which are the people cuts?
They are the toughest cuts, because culture eats strategy for lunch, right? And when you have to do a reduction in force, it cuts at the culture. This is where the human capital strategy meets the financial management strategy. And, it's people that drive profit, an understanding of which are the
scorecard, excuse me, a people's scorecard. Okay.
People's scorecard. Yeah. What are the drivers of success in your business? For us, it's retention. In a lot of businesses, right now you're in survival mode. That's not going to be retention. But if you're in strengthen mode, this is what you want to focus on. Who are the people who fit the core values? Who are the people that are the leaders of the future, that are going to take you up the mountaintop and get you through this difficult time?
Yep.
And then how do you repeat them? What are those behaviors? Not the skills. You can teach skills, but what are the behaviors that will make you stronger when you come out of it. And then again, I'm an Insperity client, so I learned this from them. We were having turnover problems. 21% turnover is what we had 8 years ago, and now it's 6.2% last year unplanned turnover. Yep. And the industry average in America is 19%.
Wow.
And so they had us go through 5 dysfunctions of a team.
Yes, I could tell you what they are.
What are they?
They're a lack of trust, a fear of conflict, lack of accountability, inattention to results, and a lack of commitment.
That's so cool that you know that. We changed our whole management team. Now, half the management team as a result of it. And it was a game changer because now all of a sudden, you know what is success in the company. You know everyone is aligned. Yep. And if somebody doesn't fit, it's really obvious. What we suggest you do right now is you take that profitability by customer report and add custom fields in the accounting system to see which teams worked on that customer, which people worked on it. Now I can start to run profitability by team, by person. Yep. By type of job, and allows you to be able to see if we have to cut the human capital side. These are the people who don't fit the core values of the company, yes, and the culture. And then here's the data to back it up on the financial side to say they're also the ones that are going to be dragging down your profits. They're the ones that are wasting, that are time leakage, that are unengaged. A small increase in employee productivity has an outsized impact on the profitability. 15 minutes a day translates to 3.125% of the whole work week. Right. And so if you're a $3 million business, that's $100,000. Yep. So, look at the people there's 2 hours wasted every day on average. So who are the people who are engaged? Who are the people that are acting like owners? And this is one of the wonderful things I think about the recession, particularly in construction, is because so many folks have been complaining to me for the past 3 years about, I've got B and C players in my business because I've got so much work and I've got to get it built. Yeah. Now is the time to really have that hard decision discussion. Who are my A players that I want to keep? And then if I'm in growth mode, who are the A players in those other companies that now is the time to pick those guys and gals up and bring them on the team? That's phenomenal. We're following this idea of 5 things that someone can do in order to thrive in the recession. And I just want you guys to know there's going to be a link in the show notes where you can go out to Stephen's website and get a full breakdown of those 5 ways. So far, we've talked about break-even point, cash flow forecasting, pricing, cuts above and below the line. What's the 5th one? This is my favorite. It's sharpen the saw. Okay. What that means is use this time to step back and say, how can we make this a better company? Every aspect of it. And the human capital and the financial management strategies together come into play in this first piece of that, which is you need to have a budget and get the disciplines around financial management. Because Harvard did a landmark case study. They said the simple act of writing down goals will increase your likelihood of success by 82%. It's amazing. Amazing. And why is that? It comes back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Above survival and safety is belonging. We need to belong to something bigger than ourselves. We need it. It's not a want. And what Harvard found is that if management can cascade a clear vision and goals for the company down to a department, and a department manager can cascade it down to a team and teams to an individuals, and each person understands their role in the success of their small team, and their team's success, how it relates to the department and the company, and why that's good for them, you're going to get discretionary effort. Mm-hmm. There's 2 hours available every day wasted. And if people feel like I belong to something, I belong to my team, I like my boss likes me, my boss cares about me, my company cares about me, and if the company does well, I'm going to do well. I'm going to get a bonus at the end of the year. I might get promoted. You're going to contribute to health insurance, or I might have a 401k because a profitable company is good for me. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to take that hour figuring out when can Amazon deliver my next, box of stuff. Yep. And the budget is the start of that. When you cascade a budget, it doesn't necessarily mean a financial budget. A sales budget is the one that's easiest to explain. Every sales manager has a sales budget. Every sales rep understands what their activity budget is for that week, that day, how many calls, how many leads, how many proposals.
Right.
You want to do the same thing in the rest of the organization. I'm a big fan of Gino Wickman and traction.
Sure.
That's how we run the company.
Yep.
And what management monitors gets done.
Yep.
What do you want to monitor?
Yep.
And everybody should have a number and feel proud in their number.
Yep.
And then you'll start getting some discretionary time. The budget helps you because everybody then sees, okay, this is what we've got to hit. And their decisions, if management's monitoring the budget versus actual, then that's what will get done. Yep. We suggest that needs to be at every job, right? And at the end of each job, you sit back and do a post-project review. What happened? What did we miss? How do we get better? And get people to contribute and say, you know what? If we had known in advance that blah, 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 that could have saved me 4 hours.
Yep.
Oh.
So that fundamental metric there of budget versus actual, understanding it, telling the truth about what the budget versus actual is, and making sure that you're disciplined to be able to pick up the actual versus the budget so that you can then make decisions based on that data.
Exactly. Well said. The other reason the budget's so important is because it makes your income statement and your balance sheet are not actionable. They weren't designed to be actionable. They were designed for external users, right? They're designed to make sure the bank is happy and the IRS is not waking you up at night.
Right.
Keeping you awake at night. It allows you to look at the income statement and see a budget, the actual results compared to what you hoped they would be, what your expectations were. Right. And now management can quickly figure out, do I have an above the line problem? Do I have a top line problem? Or do I have a below the line problem? Where do I have a pricing problem? Do I have a sales problem? Or, we're spending too much on technology? That budget lets you start to also look forward, do scenarios. What if we lose 30% of our revenue? What if we lose 15%? And you're going to find is when you forecast that out, one, you can do something about it. And two, it's rarely as bad as your worst case scenario is. So that state of mind, that fear that we talked about in step one, the data is illuminating.
Right.
The second thing I would suggest on sharpening the saw is automate. Okay. I was on the AICPA's executive roundtable, which is a group of technology companies. GrowthForce is about team and technology. We automate everything.
Right.
And there's cash flow is what's critical in good times and bad, but this is a great opportunity to study your best practices. How often are you doing billing? Right? It should be immediately upon completing a milestone, not waiting till the end of the month.
Right.
What are the number of steps that it takes to get a bill out the door?
Right.
Study it. Eliminate the handoffs. What we suggest, I got to be an Inc. 500 featured speaker for a couple of years, and I did this 6-month study of the Fortune 1000 cash flow best practices. And the single best takeaway that I got was collections is king. Mm-hmm. Most people think, okay, I'm going to make my first call 30 days after the bill is sent out when it's due. I'm going to call on day 31 and say, how come you didn't pay me?
Yeah.
What we suggest is your first call should be before you start doing any work. I've got a marketing agency that Chief Outsiders, they're an Outsource chief marketing officers, CMOs, great business, 65 of them across the country. And we call Chief Outsiders clients when the contract is signed saying, hi, I'm Kyle. I'm in the accounting department at Chief Outsiders, and I see you just signed a contract. I want to congratulate you. You made a wise choice. We want to walk through the proposal just to make sure that I make it really easy for you to be in compliance. So the bill is due on the 15th of the month. And how do you pay your bills? When do you pay your bills?
Yep.
Who has to approve this bill before you will pay it? What supporting documentation do you need attached? And is a Dropbox link okay? Or do you actually need me to scan it or put it in the FedEx, God forbid? And if you get all those process issues figured out, you've eliminated the single biggest cause of why people don't pay you is because you didn't send them the bills right. Yep. You had Patrick Hogan on your last podcast, and he talked about, getting your bookkeeper, your accountant to have a checklist of the things that you need to send out that bill.
Yep.
Oh, that was the best advice of that session. that certificate of insurance needs to be attached. Okay. Make sure that it's the billing clerk's hands before you start the job, not after you sent the bill out. So that's the biggest takeaway. There's also a lot of, by the year 2015, the entire bookkeeping and accounting clerk function will be completely eliminated.
By
It'll be
2050,
automated.
Is that what you said?
2015. It's actually, recently AICPA has said it'll speeding up to 2013 because of the pandemic. Because
2050. But we're in 2020 right now.
I'm sorry, 2025. Sorry, it was 5 years away, and now they're saying it's 3 years away, right?
Okay, there you go.
3 years away, 2023. Why? Because of robotics, right? You can automate everything.
Right.
Even if your accounting system doesn't do it, you can write a macro to go out and grab the information and then pop up a screen that says, here's the bill. Is this okay to pay? Just the whole thing now is the time to automate. Study the number of steps. Most of our clients use Intuit. They have Intuit payment solutions and the cash application process. So if you can eliminate those steps, that study that we showed, if you automate your process and you streamline your billing so that it gets done not once a month at the end of the month, but after each milestone or every week or as frequently as you can, you'll drop your DSO, your day sales outstanding, from over 30, 32, 33 to 14. Why? Because when you send that email out to somebody with a pay now button that they can just enter a credit card number, they're going to pay you right away.
Right.
And unless you have really big invoices, the 3% credit card charge that you have to pay is worth every penny to avoid having to have foreclosure at your door and your client's cash flow problems becoming your cash flow problems.
No, I just want to ask you something. I know at the beginning, before we went live, because I know we're running up on a time stoppage here, you had one particular insight of how to increase the rapidity of your clients paying you based on when you send the bill out. And I really want you to share that with the audience.
Thanks for reminding me. Yeah. So in this Inc. 500 study I did, what they found was if you send your invoices out on Saturday or Sunday, you'll get paid 10 days faster than if you bill on Tuesday, Thursday, or Friday.
Why do you think that is?
Exactly. That's immediately what I got back when this NYU graduate student who did the research. That's immediately what I said. Why? He said, because on Monday morning, when the accounting clerk comes in, they look at this and says, wow, they sent this in over the weekend. They must need the cash. Billing must be important to them. That poor person had to work on the weekend. Let me take care of this right now. And Monday morning, they take care of it. Whereas it just got done on a Thursday or Friday. It's like, okay, it's got to the end of the week and they did their billing. So I'll get to it when I get to it.
Interesting. So just that one little tweak can really help you in terms of your ability to collect.
Yeah, and I know, most of your larger clients aren't using QuickBooks, but Intuit Payment Solutions is a godsend. Worth every penny.
Okay, so as we wrap up here, Stephen, and there's so many insights into the whole issue of running a healthy company. Where can folks find you if they want to find you?
So we are www.growthforce.com.
Yep.
That's GrowthForce.com. Yep. And you can reach me at Stephen, STEPHEN, at growthforce.com. That's my email. My Twitter is, I have that right here, SKingGforce. And my LinkedIn is Stephen King, STEPHEN, Stephen King CPA.
Excellent. And then we are going to put a link in the show notes to those 5 steps. How did you describe those?
Yeah, the 5 steps to weather this storm.
5 steps to weather the storm. There will be a link in the show notes so that you can go check that out, and specifically to a webinar. Is that right?
We'll create a landing page for the show that'll have a link to the webinar. I'll also put the cash flow forecasting tool in there. We got some pricing tools, a whole bunch of stuff that I wrote down that I mentioned that we'll give away to your listeners.
Beautiful. That's all in there. And then as we're wrapping up here, I just have one question.
Okay.
You were the CFO of Amnesty International. And I want you to tell the audience about the time you met Bono backstage.
Yeah, that was a great run. I did that for 7 years. I was CFO and then director of development. So I learned how to help nonprofits raise money. We, as director of development, I got, to tickets to the U2 show at Madison Square Garden and, invited backstage. And what was really cool is my boss was working for Peter Gabriel's Witness program, and Peter Gabriel was there. And the woman he was with, knew me from Amnesty, and she introduced me to Peter Gabriel.
Nice.
So we're talking about his program, and I introduced him to my wife, Trish, and she says, "You're my favorite." So I'm like, "Okay, honey, we're backstage at Madison Square Garden. Be cool, be cool." So end of the story. We meet all these people. The end of the night, Bono comes out with a wraparound sunglasses and a cape because he was McFly at the time. And Edge comes out and the whole band. And Jack Healy, who's the executive director, was there. And he comes over to see Jack. And I'm looking at my hero, my idol, Bono, right? My family's from Dublin. My cousin's kids go to school with Bono's kids. He's got Amnesty International, $18 million in revenue, right? When I joined that year, we tripled in growth. So Trish says, "Hi, I'm Steve. I'm Trish. This is Steve King from Amnesty." I just look at him going, "You're my favorite." I froze. I totally freaking froze. So that's a true
fanboy. Oh, that's beautiful. How did he respond? Was he kind of gracious about it, or how?
He was awesome. What was really cool is we were with a guy named Leo who's in a wheelchair with muscular dystrophy. He was our guest, and he said, "Leo, how was the sound? What were the acoustics like?" And then Edge comes over and he's like, "Hey, these guys were sitting, in this spot, and they said they didn't hear any reverb." And Leo was like, talking at a level that I wouldn't be able to do. And then the Edge comes over and he says, Leo says, "I want to meet the Edge." So Bono goes, "Edge, come here." So Edge comes over. He goes, "Hey, Leo wants to meet you." Leo says, "I noticed you switched from a Stratocaster to a Fender on Bullet the Blue Sky. Was that a Hendrix influence?" I'm like, holy crap, Leo in his moment. So yeah, they were really interested in our sound of Madison Square Garden, which I thought was really cool.
That's awesome. Awesome. Well, I really, really appreciate your time joining me here today. Stephen, thank you for your insights. I know that my audience is really going to appreciate that, and I'll make sure that they're able to get in touch with you. And I do wish you the best as you continue to help your clients through the times that we're going through. Thanks, Eric. And, Stephen, STEPHEN at GrowthForce.com. If you've got any questions or your listeners do, I'm happy to answer them myself. Beautiful. Well, take advantage of that, because that is a great resource to lay hold of. Thank you, Stephen. Appreciate that. Thank you, Eric. Thank you for listening to this episode of Construction Genius. Hope you found that 1% of inspiration to help you in the next few days. If you like the show, please give us a 5-star review on iTunes, share it with other construction leaders who you think would benefit, and always remember that the show is brought to you by Kick-Ass Meetings. I've been working with construction leaders since 2004, teaching them how to run extremely effective problem-solving meetings that gets their people collaborating, taps into their creativity. And to get yourself a free copy of the Kick-Ass Meeting Report, go to www.ericanderton.com/kickassmeetings. Grab yourself that free report, read it, use it in your business. You'll find it extremely useful. And thanks again for listening.